I lived in Charlottesville for 4 years. I graduated from the University of Virginia in 2000. And my experience there was nothing short of phenomenal. A sense of community, a sense of activism, a sense of generosity, not just from the students who came onto the student campus, or grounds as we call it, but also from the people who lived in the environment, who lived in the community, who had been in that community far before we got there and matriculated onto those grounds and remained after we left. And what was shared was an imprint and an ethos of humanity, of activism, of respect, and of a worldview beyond ourselves.
Y'all might know me because of my pride for Atlanta, but a lot of it also is for Charlottesville. At UVA, I actually studied the civil rights movement under Julian Bond, who was then the president of the NAACP. And it was in Charlottesville that I decided to commit my life and my work to social justice, like all of you. When I saw what happened in Charlottesville this summer, I felt like a girl, a young woman, maybe in a place like Germany at the beginning of the Holocaust. And I decided to quit my job and to do something about it, not in Charlottesville, but where I live in Atlanta. And so it's a huge honor, Rachel. I'm just so glad that you're able to bring this amazing family to NEXUS for all of us to learn from and to live Heather's legacy as much and as well as we can. So we welcome up Susan Bro.
It's been almost 6 months. Feels like decades. August the 11th, I was a secretary in a country office. I'd quit teaching about 7 years before that. Had health problems, looking forward to retirement. Grandma of 7 at that time. I don't think Charlie was born, was he? Yeah, Charlie was born. But I had this precious gift in my life. This was my baby girl. I had a son 5 years older. And I've started sharing her baby pictures because people say she didn't exist. People say she's make-believe. People say I'm an actor. By the way, that on her head, that's a toilet paper holder. She loved that thing. My mother had that in her house, and she loved it as a hat. And you can see the delight on her face when she's finally allowed to wear it for a picture. That's my father, and you can see Heather's ear there. That ear was closed. We had surgery for that ear several times. That's my mom and Heather. That's Heather's high school picture. Heather graduated in 2003. She worked up the nerve to sing at her graduation, but mostly she was shy. And she would talk to people one-on-one or in small groups, all about family and friends, but she would never, ever, ever do what I'm doing. She was supposed to do a commercial for a Miller Law Group, and she actually panicked, came to me in tears and said, "Mom, I can't do it." All right, am I pushing the right button? Here we go. That's us. Probably the most recent photo I have with her. We saw each other all the time, so we didn't take pictures. This was at my aunt's wedding, and it was about a year and a half ago. And it's at my mom and dad's church. I'm not a church person generally. I'm not opposed to church. I just don't go to church. And Heather would be mortified that people even saw that because she didn't do anything to her hair that day. She washed her hair and came to church with her hair wet. She said she was running late. That's her natural looking hair. But beautiful girl. You can tell she's my daughter. Ironically, Kim, my husband, he and I have only been together 4 years, and he looks almost exactly like my first husband, who at that time had red hair when he and I were married. Kim had black hair before I met him, but somehow they ended up looking alike. So I thought that was funny. People often get the two of them mixed up, and they'll go, "Oh, you're Heather's dad," and he's like, "No." Anyway, yeah, that's my baby girl, and I miss her. But I'm very proud of how she went and why she went. And I think we'll just leave that one up there. I don't know. Do we have more? Let me look and see. Oh, yep, there we go. Okay, this one's when she's 18. This one's a selfie she took. She worked at a place called Lord Hardwick's, and she had titled this one Hardwick's Life. You know, it's a hard knock life. It's a Hardwick's life. And there's her with her beloved Violet. Violet's 5, going on 6 now. She lives with Heather's best friend, Karen. The only child Heather really wanted to have. She was never into dolls. She was never into children. She loved, loved, loved Nick's little girl. She adored her. They would call and put puppy dog faces on, you know, with Snapchat and all that stuff. But, yeah, this was her baby. And I think that's the last one. Yeah, so I'm going to leave them off there for now. So, yes, Heather was real. My pain is real. I just don't choose to share my pain publicly. That's the other thing, is I've been accused of being an actor because I don't cry in public. Not a big fan. Have done it just because, but prefer not to. So let me tell you a little bit about what I'm doing now moving forward. I think you all know the story of Charlottesville pretty well, but just in case you're not sure, yes, the Charlottesville that these two lovely ladies presented is very accurate if you're a student at UVA. It's very accurate if you're a wealthy person who lives in Charlottesville, and probably a white person, although not entirely. Charlottesville is very much a little college town, but it's an old college town, and it's haves and have-nots. The middle class has mostly escaped to other counties because they can't afford to live in Charlottesville. It's terribly expensive to live in Charlottesville. I do not live in Charlottesville. Never could afford it. Heather worked 2 jobs just to afford the upstairs level of an old house, and she was glad to do so. She loved Charlottesville. But there has long been a history in Charlottesville of racial divide and poverty divide, economic divide. And some of what City Council was trying to do in dealing with the statues was to correct some of that history. Although I will tell you, they're in the process of gentrification yet again, and yet again we're trying to mobilize forces to stop that. But the statues were put into place during Jim Crow law days into affluent black neighborhoods. I've learned since that the land was actually deeded to the city of Charlottesville by a wealthy gentleman who also gave them a large municipal park, these 2 smaller parks, and it was specified that one would be for Stonewall Jackson and one would be for Robert E. Lee, with those statues there. How long you have to honor those requirements, I don't know. That's not really my place to judge, but I will tell you that many of the citizens of Charlottesville would like those statues gone because of what they represent, but not all. There are many who will fight to keep them there. And that's what brought people from 35 other states that day. They got off the buses, they got out of caravans with shields, with bats, with rifles, with tear gas, with bottles of urine, and tiki torches, as you well know. And they came to draw blood. Their chants on Friday night on the UVA lawn, they marched up across the lawn, and their chants were blood and soil. Jews will not replace us. You will not replace us. And the Jewish synagogue there near the campus, they barricaded people inside after their service and would not let them out of their own synagogue. This is 2017, people. This is not 1945 Germany. And I know Germany's come a long way, but it doesn't look like America has, does it? So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot to overcome. Some of the people who were there that day were there to support the Confederate flag. Some of the people who were there that day said people are trying to erase white history. Some of the people who were there that day were saying they were there to protect freedom of speech. Regardless, they came to draw blood. Heather had not intended to go to the rally on Saturday, but when she watched her friends' live stream videos from Friday night on the lawn, she said to Justin, her best friend, I have to go. I have to go. And Heather was not the only white person there that day. She was not the only person her age there that day. There were people of all ages, people of all races, people of many different religious beliefs there that day to support peaceful, nonviolent, a reclaiming of Charlottesville from the violence that came to visit that day. Some people lost their temper, not in Heather's group. It is documented, because as a mom, I'm skeptical. You tell me my kid was good, but I want to know. The detectives have verified for me that Heather's group was a peaceful group. It was a peaceful group of protesters. They were not a violent group. Yes, her murderer's windshields in the back were busted after he ran into the crowd. People were angry when he ran into the crowd, and while he is there and starts to back up, people bash his windshield trying to get him to stop because he ran over some people twice. So where do we go from there? Well, as you can see from this, all I can do is move forward. I am a creator. I am a maker by nature. I'm not one to wallow in my self-pity. I'm not the first mother to ever lose a child. I'm not the last mother to ever lose a child to the civil rights movement, I will tell you. I wish it were so. I wish it would never happen again, but the reality is it probably will. I want to do what I can to prevent that, and so I formed the Heather Heyer Foundation, and if you ever want to know the reasons why I formed the foundation, I'll tell you at another time, but I don't want to blow all my time now talking about that, because frankly, sitting right here, I have been so excited to hear people saying what I'm saying, and I've never met these people before, okay? Never heard of these people before, sorry guys. But I love the fact that we're all coming to the same conclusions. We're drawing the same conclusions. We're taking some of the same actions. So let me tell you what I'm going around the country talking to people about now, and a new initiative that we are starting with the Heather Heyer Foundation as well. Now, the Heather Heyer Foundation was originally started with one goal in mind. All this money came in. Alfred, her former boss, Alfred J. Wilson of Miller Law Group, looked at each other and said, I got to do something with this money. It's not meant for the family. There's too much money coming in. It's coming in from all over the place. We have to set up some sort of structure. I've worked in state government for the past 7 years. Before that, I worked as a teacher, so I knew you had to have legal structures. And so we quickly set up the foundation. We had our IRS letter of determination, not in the normal 6 to 27 months that it takes. Remember, we haven't even been formed 6 months yet. We had our IRS letter of determination because we had every single thing in place in 5 months. Now, that's a minor miracle in itself. So anyway, we set up the foundation to give scholarships. That was our first priority. We said we can give scholarships for people obtaining degrees or certifications in social justice careers, such as law, such as getting a paralegal certificate, which is what Heather would have done had she been alive to get her continue her education. Criminal justice, social work, anything that we felt like, but that's only going to reach a few people, right? The first 2 years, we're only giving local high school scholarships, one to the high school Heather graduated from and one to Charlottesville High School, because we're trying to build our endowment. So our focus was initially on that, but then I got a call from Greensburg, Indiana, can you come talk to some kids? My board of directors is like, my PR team is like, why are you doing that? That doesn't really have anything to do with scholarships. I said, I know, but I'm a teacher at heart. This is really where my heart is. I want to do this. So I went and I talked to the kids. It was awesome. It was a Chautauqua, which, raise your hand if you're familiar with that term. I had heard of it, but I didn't really know exactly how it went. And it's twice a year, this high school teacher in this small rural high school has this program where he brings in people from anywhere in the world or country that are related to whatever topic he's chosen. So this particular time, because of Heather's death, he wanted to do one about faces of discrimination, and so he had two Holocaust survivors. He had a Japanese internment camp survivor. He had a Chief Justice from the Indiana Supreme Court. He had the author of Mean Girls, who also has an anti-bullying curriculum. He had me. He had the woman who played Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. Just quite a mix of people. And so I got to talk to these kids, but that really didn't have anything to do with scholarships. And this was kind of a not wealthy community, so I wasn't even talking to them about scholarships, but I thought that's really where my heart is. Started getting a few more calls to talk to schools. Started working with, just this past week, I talked to a Girl Scout group. We've talked to classrooms. I'm invited in May to New Jersey to talk to 2,500 middle schoolers. In 2 weeks, we go to Orlando, and I talk to 5,000 Jewish youth. And we began to realize that we're having these programs all with youth that really don't have anything to do with scholarships. So we were trying to think of how to set this up. So we got a logo from a guy. He said, let's do one called Higher Power. Sounded good, but I kept thinking that sounds like something else I've heard. Higher power, higher power. Oh, yeah, Al-Anon has higher power. I have known people who were involved in Al-Anon, so I said, well, we can't really use that. We're not saying Heather's God. So we started talking about what else could we call it. So Alfred's youngest daughter, Amina, actually said, well, let's call it Voices, Higher Voices. And that resonated with us. Meanwhile, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation has called us and has partnered with us in order to promote our programs and to go with their campaign of Stand Against Hate. And so we had some contests. We had some essay contests involved. So the contest winners, Alfred's kids, myself, Alfred and his wife, were all in a hotel in Hollywood during the Rose Bowl parade weekend, because we rode in the Rose Bowl parade. And we were talking, and the kids indicate what they would like Higher Voices to be is where we empower youth to develop their own programs, their own campaigns, not have the adults interfere, but have the adults facilitate. Well, yeah, of course. And so that is another arm that I'm actually way more excited about than the scholarships. Scholarships are going to reach 1 or 2 a year, maybe 3 or 4 if we get really lucky and build that endowment. But the higher power of Higher Voices is going to, I think, be where the real energy is. I mean, we're going to help train trainers to develop their own Higher Voices units in their schools, in their districts, in their areas, and work with kids to develop their own programs. Now, here's what we're teaching the kids. Here's what I'm teaching adults wherever I go. Here's what we say. Heather's motto was, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. She did not write that. People keep trying to say Heather wrote this. No, she didn't. Nobody knows who wrote it, actually. It's anonymous, or unknown, I should say. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. So if you work that backwards, we developed 4 pillars off of that. The first pillar is pay attention. Know your sources. How many times have you heard that tonight? Know your sources, check your facts. The second pillar is to be outraged. Now, when I say outraged, yes, that can mean anger, but that means anger in a way that's going to motivate you to act. You guys have heard a lot of information at this summit. You guys have a lot of know-how. You have a lot of wherewithal. You have skills and abilities nobody else has. Your call to action is step 3. What do I do with my anger? What do I do with my frustration? What do I do that's going to make a difference with my talents and my abilities? Because everybody's unique. Maybe your talent is in art. Maybe your talent is in motivating others. Maybe you're a speaker. Maybe you're an investor. Whatever your special, unique talent and ability is, you have a call to action to use that, because none of us cannot be involved anymore. Step 4, be accountable for your actions. Make sure that what you are doing is ethical, is logical, and is reasonable. And I've heard some fabulous, just awesome boundaries and concepts to think about from these other speakers about how to be accountable with that. Particularly with the first young man, am I speaking from a place where I should be speaking from? Am I speaking for people or with people? I mean, take all of this information that you're gathering at the summit and apply it in a way that's going to work for you with your abilities. And then I'm going to add a 5th tenet for you guys, because you're already, I'm preaching to the choir, basically. You wouldn't be here if you weren't already interested. So the 5th one I'm going to say to you is, bring somebody along with you. Think for a moment of all the people that you work with who know all these things but may not be motivated yet. They may not be invested emotionally, intellectually. Try to think about who you can bring along with you. Hold them accountable for their actions. Give them a purpose, give them an example, get them involved. And if we all do that, what a difference we'll make. I often say to myself, what the hell am I doing? Why am I talking to people? Who cares what the mom says? Okay? But I remind myself, I'm making a ripple. I'm tossing pebbles out, and I'm making ripples. And if each of you tosses out a pebble, some of your pebbles are going to be bigger than mine, okay? But if each of us tosses pebbles in the same direction, we're going to make a lot of ripples. And you get enough ripples together, you make a wave. And if you get enough waves together, you make a tsunami. And that's what this country and this world needs, is we need that tsunami of change in a positive direction, a positive growth, a positive healing. Part of that healing is to have these difficult conversations, and I hear that from so many other speakers. I can't tell you how delighted I am. Get out of your comfort zone a little. Be willing to talk a little bit beyond what's considered polite conversation, and be willing to listen to one another. As I told Senator Mark Warner, we're not all going to put our arms around each other and sing Kumbaya at the end. It's very unlikely, knowing human nature. But we can at least listen with respect and try to hear where the other person is coming from. Particularly, we as liberals tend to look down our noses and sneer at other people. I have to tell you, I cringed when I heard Hillary use the word deplorables, because some of those very deplorables are family members. And it hurt them. And I understand where she was coming from. I understand where we come from sometimes as we look down our noses. But let's remember that other people have points of view that need to be heard, and we need to listen to them, and we need to bring them along with us. So in conclusion, you have your call to action. Heather's real, I'm real. And I believe that together, all of us tossing our pebbles out there, working our plan of action, bringing someone else along with us, is going to make the change that we want to see, both in ourselves and in the rest of the world. Thank you.